Okay, welcome to part 3. We were just talking about the Fairness Ordinance. We'll read about that later, but just, I guess, the thing to know is, this is kind of a cliffhanger thing. It's just the thing to know and to remember is it happened in Baton Rouge. It started in Houston first. We'll read about it later. It's pretty ridiculous. It's not really ridiculous. It's unbelievable would be what I would say. Anyways, this is under sanctioned crime. And we'll get into why it's a crime here in a bit when we get to the meat of the story. No, that doesn't make sense. Let me say it right now. So the Fairness Ordinance is an ordinance where we have to be tolerant to transgenders and cross-dressers and the like, or the ilk, I guess I would say. Those people are perverted. They're perverts. They're sick. Worst of all is they're calling God a liar because they're saying God made me this way. And that it's good that God approves of this, and it's not. God doesn't approve of that. They're confusing nature, and it's horrible. Anyway, so the thing is we have to be tolerant to them, and so we should allow them to go into the woman's bathroom if they feel like a woman that day, go into the man's bathroom if they feel like a man. And that's what the Fairness Ordinance is. It started first in Houston. And we'll read about that as we hit that story. Houston was a launching pad for that, which is tied into the idea that they're trying to, it's called Battleground Texas is the name of the mission, where the godless liberals, hypocrites, are trying to destroy Texas because Texas is that's probably the most important state in the world, but I can get in that now, but most important state in the world because it's the most important state in the United States. It's got the biggest economy. We are known for our wild nature, firearms, excuse me. And so the most important state and the most important nation in the world, so it makes us a very important place, and the devil's going to try to come here and push his form of religion on us. Next story, Hawaiians win community GMO victory over Monsanto. So here's our first positive story, great. Biotech seeks to overturn Hawaii County GMO planning. So that's kind of a negative spin on it. Anyways, so that happened, and then this is what they try to do. They're trying to overturn it. I'm not sure how that progressed, but if you're interested, you can look it up. This is under fascism. Again, what we're doing, I should have said in part 2, is I'm reviewing stories that were released in 2014 that I've archived of interest that I found important, and it's just a 2014 in review, and most of these stories are negative because that's the trend of our nation right now. Next story, breastfed home birth babies taken away from parents for not using hospital. Representative Jason Overstreet, representing the 42nd District in Washington, and who has taken an interest in this case, just posted an update on his Facebook page. The Ringo family placement hearing was moved up this morning to 10 a.m. from the scheduled 4 p.m. I don't know why I even put that in there. Security was heavy and the courtroom was packed. So the Ringo family is the family we're talking about, where their children were taken away from them because they didn't use the hospital. And this is attached to a very common thing that's been going on in the United States. Well, there's 2 comments I'm going to make here. One is shots. We were just talking about it today. A commercial came on and says, "Don't forget your shots." And it's real interesting how they phrase it. Instead of saying it honestly, saying, if you want shots, you can get them now. But they say, don't forget. Like don't forget to take out the trash. Don't forget to pay the bill. Don't forget to change your time for daylight saving time. Don't forget to wipe your rear end. So they phrase it in a way that you have to have it. Don't forget, you need your shot. And it's just very... so anyways, schools, they pressure parents to get these shots for their children. I think I have a story on this too. So that's one thing that's related to this. Despotism as a label for this story. Where they're basically saying the children belong to the state and not to you. And the second thing is homeschooling and schooling if you look, Wikipedia has an article about homeschooling, and I didn't realize homeschooling is basically illegal in the whole world. There's a few states, a few nations that do it, that allow it. But it's the same thing. If you try to homeschool, you get yourself in all this, they pressure you, and this is the same thing. So, okay, moving on to the next story. California orders, let me see how I'm doing for time. I forgot where I was. Okay. California orders churches to fund abortions, or else. California's Department of Managed Health Care has ordered all insurance plans in the state to immediately begin covering elective abortions. Not Plan B, not contraceptives. Elective surgical dismemberment abortion. So either way, the California Department of Managed Health Care says all insurance plans in the state must cover abortion, elective abortion. That's what the state is pushing that on the private businesses of the insurance companies. And I'm sure that didn't get pushed, but they just love to push that button. So that's happened, and that's a label I give sanctioned crime, because it's the murder, promoting murder and child sacrifice. And it's despotism also, because they're successfully making Christians support child sacrifice. And there's also a subject, I'm just going to go into it right now, real brief. All birth control creates abortion, except for the mechanism, the blocking mechanism, abortions, condoms for both type. You don't believe me? Look at HEB, or not HEB. Look at Hobby Lobby, the Green family. Look at what they did. Look at their deal. Look up abortifacient. That's a word. So if you're a Christian and you're using birth control pills, especially, and you've been using for a year, you probably have had one abortion. And you can the way they work is the main part of abortion is to keep the woman from producing eggs, right? But there's also a backup, a plan B, which is create a hostile environment in the lining of the woman's uterus. So if that egg does get fertilized, when it comes into the point to implant in the uterus, that second part of the cocktail that's in the birth control pill creates this hostile environment where it won't implant, so the egg will pass through and you won't even know it, which is abortion, because the Bible says that life begins at conception, and then they're trying to change the definition of conception to mean when that egg gets implanted, but that's not when God said conception was. And I have an article on that if you want the biblical. I don't think I have it with me just right now. It's like, dang it. If you want to comment on this one, let me know. Put in there in your comment, all in bold, put in biblical definition of conception, and I'll give you the two verses that show that it's involving Mary, and I'll give you the verses, that way you know for sure. I don't have it with me, and I don't want to drain a bunch of time. Let's see where I am for time. Okay, we'll do one more minute here, Lord willing. Okay, so that's the thing with that story. Another story. Catholic universities to begin offering benefits to legally married same-sex spouses. Father Timothy Lannon, president of Creighton University, my former employer, has announced that starting in 2015, the school will provide benefits to legally married same-sex spouses. Most Jesuit universities already do so, as will Notre Dame, which recently announced in its new policy that it also will take effect in 2015. I give this a label of sanctioned crime, Man shall not lie with man as he does with woman. Kind, I guess is how it's phrased. I'm not really sure. But it's a crime. It's perversion. Like I said, it's the only thing I can think of in the Bible. It's the only sin I know of in the Bible where God will destroy a whole city for it. As you can see Sodom and Gomorrah, is what I'm trying to say. So it's sanctioned crime, and it's kind of interesting. If I ask a homosexual and say, what do you think of a man having sex with a cat or something like that, or a dog or something, I'm sure they're going to show some kind of repulsion to the idea, most of them. And it's the same thing. So all it is that level of how disturbing it is to them, that's how disturbing homosexuality is to a normal person. That's how they can relate to it, or you can relate to it if you're homosexual. See Romans chapter 1 on God's explanation of how homosexuals became homosexuals. Romans chapter 1. Yeah, Romans. Next story. Actually, I've already went over my time.